So I'll start off by thanking the guys in JOE.ie for doing this tonight, because I believe telling your story is the most important thing. And I was at a gig on Friday night. McMahon, another Dublin player, was running it. And when you talk about mental health or mental illness, you get mixed emotions, and you go to these events not knowing what way you're going to feel walking out. And when I walked out of the mental health talk on Friday night, I felt so positive. I wanted just to go and help somebody straight away. So hopefully that's what you'll get tonight. I'm just going to give you a kind of an insight to what I've been doing over the last couple of months, and a little idea that I've been messing around with. I'm doing a TED Talk in November, hopefully, and this is something that I'm messing about with. It's called the halftime talk. So if we look at this line underneath the title, there's probably people in the audience here thinking, he's going to tell us Jim Gavin's all his secrets at halftime. It's not that. So a halftime talk, if we imagine that, those who know sport, you play the first half of your game and then you go in at halftime, and a couple of things can happen. The first thing that could happen is that you say, okay, I've had a good half, I've played well in this half, my performance is good. And you can go a half-time and say to yourself, okay, but I can do better. I want to up my standards, I want to improve my standards. Another thing that can happen is you could go in, the first half and play really poorly. And the manager could come to you and say, that's not good enough, you need to be better. Or yourself will just go through that thought process of saying, I actually can do better, I want to go out and play. And that's where the halftime talk came about, the idea came about for me. And there's two ways that you can have a halftime talk. The first is a time frame thing. So if you imagine this line here, and the start of the line being when you're born, and the end of the line being when you die. And if you just say that the life expectancy, the average life expectancy of this country would be, let's say, 70, 75 or 80, half time would be in your 30s or 35s, 40s. And what happens at that stage, a lot of people will go and say, I'm going through midlife crisis. And then they start to change the standards, and they want to look better, they want to go and achieve things, they want to go on holiday, whatever it is. They want to up their standards in life. So that's the first way that you can have a halftime talk, in my opinion, by the way. So this is all my opinion. The second one is something significant can happen in your life. Okay? So you could suffer with mental illness, and you go and you say to somebody, look, I'm not in a good place. I need to tell you my story. It could be a death in your family. It could be divorce. By the way, if I had a chance, I own gyms, if I had a chance to open a gym and just have one niche, it'd be divorced people. I'd make loads of money because they'd want to get in shape. So they're the two things that can happen, okay? And I'm going to tell you my halftime talk, and then I'm going to show you some experience. I'm going to tell you some experience that I've had with people in using this idea. So here we go. Okay, so this is the start. This is my first half, the first half of my, let's say, the game, okay? So I grew up in Ballymun, and I get asked a lot, how did you start playing football, and where did it all start? And generally when sports people are asked, they say school. I started in primary school, and that's how it all kicked off. But I actually started kicking the ball off the flats. I lived in the flats, the 4-story flats in Slogue, and I used to kick the ball off the blocks to get closer down to my brother, who was with all his mates, and basically all I wanted to do was to see what he was doing. Was he getting up to mischief? And then I used to run up to my mum and say, John's down there drinking. Give me money for sweets. So I was a little squealer. I was a little rat. So that's how I picked up football. That's how I started off. And I always refer back to Ballymun. I always refer back to where I came from, because it's shaped who I am, okay? This picture here, and there's a story behind this picture. We won the All-Ireland last year, and after it, the Irish Times wanted to do an interview with me, and I said, well, wouldn't it be great if we could get a few pictures at the last standing tower in Ballymun? And he said, great, we'll go down. But he got there a couple of minutes before me, and he said, Philly, we're not going to be able to get in and take pictures in the area that we want, because as you can see, the tower was getting knocked down. So I said, look, we'll go down, and he said, look, we can't really take pictures outside. The article was on helping youths in the area improve their self-esteem. It was about helping people understand drug addicts, and basically we couldn't take pictures of standing at a railings, okay? It just didn't put a good image on Ballymun. So I went down and anyway, and I actually noticed the security guard and knew him. So I went over to him and I said, is there any chance that we could step inside there, just a couple of yards in, and take a few pictures? We're doing an article to help youths in the area build up their self-esteem, and we're also then, you know, we're trying to create an awareness for about drug addicts. And funnily enough, he knew me and he said, yeah, go ahead, go in. But long story short, that guy, that security guard, I lived 2 blocks down from him, and his son, 4 months prior to this, passed away from an OD. So that was the connection we had. So that was the big thing for me in terms of this picture that I wanted to show you tonight. And that was the guy that actually, his son got me to play sport, actually playing a team sport. I played soccer first. He was the one that did it for me. So I wanted to share that story with you. So statistically, looking at my friends, I should have ended up on drugs, I should have ended up in prison, or I should have died from maybe drug overdose, okay? And that's just based off a group of friends that I hung around with in Ballymun. 4 of them OD'd, a lot of them ended up in prison, a lot of them ended up in drugs, and 2 weeks ago I actually went and visited one of the lads, one of my best friends who didn't drink till he was 20, started taking drugs, and then is now in prison for robbery. And I went in, and people always ask me, why would you go and see somebody in prison, like, you know? And the reason why I do that is because everybody makes mistakes. Some are really extreme, but everybody makes mistakes, okay? And it's how you rectify their mistakes, but it's also how you support people that make their mistakes that brings them back into society. And that's what I'm going to talk about next, pain versus pleasure. So most of the decisions I've made in my life has been based on this, pain versus pleasure. And to break it down simply, okay, I own a couple of gyms. So say, for example, somebody comes in and they want to lose weight, and I say to them, why are you here? And they say, I want to lose weight. That's not really why they're here. That's what they're here to do. Why they're here to lose weight is because they're suffering mentally. They have some sort of pain going on with their image, and they want to change it. And it's the exact same for people that take drugs. My brother, I'm going to speak about a little bit, he would have fell in between both of these brackets. So he would have took up drugs because a lot of his friends would have took up drugs. It was the time that Ballymun was rampant with heroin, and you know, it was one of them things that all his friends did. But most addicts, it's a group of people that I feel that's being neglected in terms of mental health. Because when we look at drug addicts, we don't think what they're actually, we actually look at them physically and we say, you're low. We don't actually care about you. We don't look at them and say, why did you go on drugs? Because 9 times out of 10, they went on drugs because they want to get rid of the pain by a pleasure. Does that make sense to everybody? So they're using the drug to get rid of the pain, and then we think we're perfect and we don't bring them back into society, okay? So that's where I went. And going back to the point of why I didn't go down that dark route and I went down the bright path was obviously I had sport, but also that I seen my brother struggle with drugs for a lot of his life. And I would have had to deal with people saying to me, your brother's a junkie. That was a really horrible place to be. So that pain pushed me towards football even further. And that's how I ended up where I am today. A lot of this stuff is based around the influence of my brother. And just pushing forward a little bit further, BK Fitness, it happened basically because I was broke, and this is my first business. I was actually repeating my leaving cert, and I got a big car, and I was going into school. I was repeating my leaving cert with these students, and they were going, "Wow, who's this guy here? He has an Audi A4, and he's repeating his leaving cert." But little did they know I was broke. I was basically buying a long pan and a packet of ham for the week. I was cooking my sandwiches and living on €2 a day. So this is where I set up my first business. And this is all, again, going into the first half of my life. 2011, sorry if anybody's not a Dublin fan here, but this is my first All-Ireland. This was a momentous occasion for me. Unfortunately, I was still in denial about my brother being a drug addict. He didn't go to it. He was in London at this stage, my brother John. So it was a big regret for me that I didn't have all my family there, and he was the missing part that we didn't have that day. So this is my halftime talk. So I've spoke about my first half. In 2012, this is a picture of my club team, Ballymun Kickums, and we got to an All-Ireland final. And just to put that in perspective, we all have probably seen that Leicester City have won the Premier League this year. Imagine them winning the Champions League next year. That's how big this was, okay? So I know it doesn't look like there's many in the stands there. That's the end of the game, but the whole of Ballymun was there, okay? So the whole of Ballymun was there that day. But we got beaten in the last 30 seconds. And I got in the middle of this huddle, and what I said to the lads was, we lost a final today, a big, big thing that we've tried to work for all our lives. And I've lost my brother this year. But I've gained 26 other brothers. So in 2012, I lost my brother John. Now, he didn't die directly from a drug overdose. He had a heart arrhythmia, but we reckon obviously there was an effect to the drug abuse that led to it. But that was my halftime talk. That's when I said to myself, things are going to change. I'm going to try live my brother's legacy. I'm going to talk about him. I'm going to help people. And this is what I'm doing for him. So after I did that, after that happened, I set up this fitness course, and it's called the Cajun Evolution, and that was for 18 to 24-year-olds to come off the social welfare. So if you were on the social welfare for longer than a year, you met the criteria, and we tried to get you support and basically give you direction back into a career path. And I was really successful. 13 out of 20, 7 went on to further education, and 6 went on to employment. So it was a massive success. So that was the start. This is the second half now we're talking about. Had my halftime talk. So I said I wanted to do something for my brother. I wanted to help people that, like, I could have went and helped younger people, but they have youth clubs, they have support groups, they have sports clubs. But what happens at 18 to 24? Where's the way back in there? You know, and if you're on the social welfare longer than a year, stats say you're going to be on it for longer than 2 years. So that was the start of my second half. That's not me, by the way. That's me there. So 2013, won my second All-Ireland, and this was a big one for me because 2012, when you play for your club, you go into if you get to the All-Ireland final, you go into the 2013 season. So when I went back to Dublin, it was already a good bit into the season, and the player that was in my position was doing really well, and Jim Gavin was like, you know, this fella's doing well, I have to leave him in there. You have to buy your time. So I did, and I started looking at nutrition, and I started trying to increase my performance. And then I basically went from there to set up my second company, which is Fit Food. So basically what I did, I said to a friend of mine who's a chef, I said, I want you to, this is not a plug, by the way, this is just the second half of my life. I said to my friend who was a chef, I said, will you cook my meals for me? I don't have time, I'm running the gyms, and I want you to make the food as interesting as possible. I want you to make sure that it's food that I normally associate as bad. So burgers and chips, curries, all of these things. So that's how we created Fit Food, and it actually turned into a business. And then we rebranded Be-Do. So the reason why I'm showing you this is because my life, the standards of my life started to increase. So I looked at things that I wouldn't feel comfortable doing, and I just said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to up my standards, and I'm going to believe in them, and I'm going to achieve them. And the last one then, which was last year, this was my third All-Ireland. So this was definitely the best year I've had in football to date. Hopefully this year will be a good year. But that was an amazing time for me. So I've been doing a couple of talks in schools and corporate companies and youth clubs and stuff like that. And the big thing that I feel that's working at the minute, and I've noticed it massively, is telling your story, telling your halftime talk. And it's it's like a web. It's just like, I mean, I went to a school yesterday to talk about this, and I got a phone call last night. I said the same thing, and a kid went up to a teacher yesterday and said, start crying in front of her, and said that my dad's an alcoholic. You know, and it's so powerful that we take responsibility by breaking that stigma of or the armor that people have of, you know, not telling their story. You tell your story and you pass it on. That's where I think we could, you know, we celebrated the 1916 Rising this year. This is the new Rising. The Rising that's going to save people's lives. So I'm going to show you this video. Some of you might have seen it before. There's a good TED Talk, Derek Sievers. It's about leadership and movement. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because what I've experienced with telling people, or, you know, using the idea of a halftime talk, it's like this. It's worked like this. And I'll go through a couple of stories, a couple of case studies that I've used after this video. So have a little look. So this guy here starts off dancing, okay? So doesn't care about the other people on the hill, and he's breaking a move there, a couple of moves. Again, it's not me dancing, I'm a better dancer. So people are looking at him going, oh, I wouldn't do that. But this fella all of a sudden comes over and says, why not? I don't care what everybody else thinks. I'm going to do it. Here we go. So one person becomes a group, and then all of a sudden they've started a movement. And what happens is the people that are on the hill, sitting down looking in, they're actually at the stage. This is where you break the stigma. They're actually looking at this and they're saying, if I actually don't do it, I'll feel left out. I'll feel that, like, so what I'm saying is, if we tell the stories, if we get more people to tell the stories, tell their stories, we break the stigma. So I'm going to give you a couple of stories on how this has worked. I did a talk at Christmas time, just a general chat about my views on addiction and stuff like that. And I got a phone call from a guy in Hamburg, and he said to me, Philly, thanks very much for your talk, and thanks for your input. It really helped me. I'm really struggling at the minute. I'm contemplating committing suicide, and my brother basically passed away at Christmas. He overdosed. And I just told him my story. I gave him my halftime talk. And I went into a bit more detail than what he's seen in the interview that I did. And then I just listened. So for 20 minutes I told him my story, and for 40 minutes then I just listened. And he went on, and you know, I'm not a counsellor, but I felt like this fella is telling me everything. And it was, in a way, I was like, should he be telling me this? And in a way I was like, yeah, this is great. Talk about it. And I said to him, there's one rule that we're going to finish up with, is that if I'm listening to your story and I'm telling your story, you have to tell somebody else your story. Pass it on, because you're going to help somebody and you're going to help yourself by doing that. So what did he do? He set up a 7-a-side Gaelic tournament in Hamburg for mental illness, for depression. Another case study was that a girl in my gym, her brother, she was actually in the Keynesian evolution course that we did, and she was struggling with bereavement, but she came up to me there a couple of weeks ago and she said to me, look, my brother's really struggling, can you help him out? I said, what's happening? She said, he's waking up every morning and he has to take sleeping tablets, and he's smoking marijuana and he's struggling, he needs help. And she said, my father's not doing any good. He's you know, really finding it hard as well. He's drinking a lot. But we need somebody to help him. And I said, right, okay, bring him up. And again, used this method of doing a halftime talk, spoke to him, and then just listened. Talk to me. Tell me what's going on. So the long story short is that his older brother died when they were younger. He jumped onto the back of a truck, fell off, banged his head and died. A year later, his mother jumped off the flats in Ballymun and committed suicide. Okay? So he's doing really well now. The most important thing is that that I explained to him that you're going to have wobbles along the way. You're not in a straight river. It's going to have bends. It's going to be tough. And he is definitely one of the best case studies I've used so far. Another story, last one I'll give you, is that we had a woman rang me and said, I want to pay for you to talk to my son. And in my head I went, does her son really want this, or does she want it for her son? And I just said, look, give him my number and we'll meet up and we'll talk. And we met up and we talked, went through the halftime talk idea, and I said to him, you need to tell somebody about your story. And it's not easy. It doesn't have to be today, it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but you'll find the time to tell somebody. And what he did was, he plays Gaelic football in Kildare, and he went back and he was playing with his club team, and they had championship that weekend, so the big tournament. And he noticed that the lads were kind of slacking off. They weren't working as hard. And he pulled them all in a huddle, and told them his halftime talk. Okay? So he told them, you think your stories, this is tough? I'm going to tell you what I went through. And he told them his story. And they went on and won their championship game, but more importantly, one of the younger guys came up to him and said to him, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with depression. I'm really finding it hard. And what did he do? The same thing I did to him. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to tell you exactly what I went through, but I want you to someday tell somebody else. So these are my 3 tips for anybody that's struggling with mental issues, or someday you come across somebody, even if you just tell your story to somebody. It doesn't have to be that you're struggling with mental issues, mental health issues. Just tell your story to somebody. Look at your life. This is my first half. I'm going to be proactive today because I've got an opportunity. Whereas I was more reactive. I waited till something significant happened in my life to start to up my standards or to change my standards in life. So tell someone, talk to somebody, and somebody might actually then come back to you and say, oh, do you know what? I actually am struggling. And we break down, we start this rise and we break it down, we set up as a web. And we go to schools, we go to youth clubs, and we keep continuing on. And that's the start of it. So tell your halftime story, no matter what stage of your life you're in. Listen to people, spread the love. It's a really cliche thing, but it is, spreading the love. Because why should we do it? Because we owe it to the people surrounding this country in graves that don't have the opportunity to be here today. Somebody's son, somebody's daughter, somebody's mother, somebody's father. We owe it to them as a society. This is a way forward. This is the way I feel we can support people that need help with mental issues. Thank you.